Hello, this is Lisalee and welcome to my channel. So I've been sitting here for kind of a while. I was wanting to do a pick a card reading, but every once in a while when I, sort of have an idea, like I wanted to do like a star family thing, sometimes it just won't kick off. And so when that happens, I go into meditation. And so this reading is like, what do you need to hear? Because I couldn't get a direct line on some of the themes that I was trying to get a direct line on, and so that means that you need to hear something. And so I'm just going to serve as that conduit for what you need to hear. So as I'm shuffling, I'm going to have you take a deep breath and just bring yourself into a sacred space. And I want you to sort of sit here breathing, in this, what is a sacred space? Because it's different than the muddle. It feels like a place where there's peace and a place where there's holiness. And so I want you to take a couple of deep breaths and bring yourself into that spiritual center of gravity that you know how to connect with by way of either prayer or spell work or whatever it is that gets you there. Because I want to bring you into the reading more than I want you to sort of happen upon it. And so if you take those breaths and you sort of bring yourself into that space, we're going to go ahead and get some cards for you. And I love how we have the angel of divination popping out with spirituality. So this is cool. Let's take a look. So Spirit is prompting me to have you think about this being that wanted to create your soul so that it could have you as a creation in the universe infinitely and forever. Something that kind of loved you and willed you into being. I want you to kind of go there with your mind and just think about the fact that something decided to create exactly you in the combination for a purpose, for a meaning, in love. And that maybe it doesn't feel like it, but something willed you into being and you are infinite. And that is an act of love. That's an act of love. It's not an accident. So take this time to sort of connect with this idea that you are not an accident, that you were created intentionally, and that the creator of your soul wants to communicate with you. Because that's what we're going to be connecting with today. And something that you need to hear right now at this juncture in your journey. Wow, look at this. I'm loving some of this imagery. Bottom of the deck energy, we have 3 of Cups. And this is kind of, this deck is really interesting. I've been looking at it and looking at it and looking at it. Because it's like every image is packed. And feeling it kind of has a similar like cadence of just being very thick, And so this 3 of Cups sort of speaks to me. I'm hearing the word community. And the 3 of Cups, generally you see 3, and they're in celebration of some kind. And this, and I'm hearing the word interaction. And so and I'm going to use the word creator for what I'm connecting with. And what the creator is saying, what your creator, it's particular to each person, but we're doing what your creator is saying is what you are and what you're made of. I'm being shown galaxies, and I'm being shown the earth, and I'm being shown like a pictogram or like one of those scales with people on it, so you can get a sense of like how many people, and it's like for every one person there are a number of galaxies. And the reason why this is important is because your creator is saying, like, here we are, like, like one of the hardest messages to get through to you is that you're not insignificant. In a sort of universe kind of a sense, it's not that there are so many people, how could there be, something that kind of keeps track of them and cares about them. It's for every one of you, there are almost like 7 galaxies, and you, what consists of you is in and of itself an extension of that galaxy. You are the consciousness that is learning from the galaxy that you are. And so that's like a very big concept, and we're gonna, you know, distill it down into like what that means for you, because some of this is so esoteric as to be sort of like too abstract to grasp or use, but we're going to get closer. But the first thing that your creator sort of wants to be bringing in for you is to widen your scope. And there's almost this insistence around like, why don't you? and there's a lot of reasons why we don't, because we feel so powerless here in this experience of ourselves with like this particular clunker of a vessel. And it's a beautiful vessel, and you're created with care, and the way that you express, like I'm being shown that your image, like the you in the mirror, creative abilities, and the way that you make art, the way that you express, that the part of you that was the seed in the beginning, the seed is the impulse and the community is the carrier. And this is really what we mean by divine feminine and divine masculine energy, impulse. And oh, actually, that's cool. So the creator is saying, like, let's get to this. If we're going to get it right, get it right. If we want to know dawn of creation, like, how did we get here? And what I'm being shown is the being that had the inspiration and the impulse. That impulse and that inspiration became matter. That matter fused with spirit, and that is what we are created of. So that's amazing. I mean, and it sort of makes sense, but you know, almost the birth process, what is that called? When you're made in the womb, you know, it mimics to like a T, like the process of how you were conceived as a concept. And so with this Angel of Divination card, you know, being here, you know, this is really, and the spirituality card being on the bottom of the deck, this actually does kind of speak to me of this agency, community, impulse, like, no, conception, impulse. It's like a very interesting, like, it's not impulse, conception, it's inspiration, impulse, conception. That's the Trinity coming through. We're getting some really wild imagery. I hope that those of you that are with me are down for this ride. So the Angel of Divination is basically coming in to say, like, you know, with this spirituality, you were never meant to be so far apart from who you are, and what I am. You're not here just, like, I'm being told, you're not here just for the purpose of raising a vibration, although that's like part of it. You know, it's the evolution of the soul takes a lot of journeys. And the way that the universe and the greater universe is constructed in terms of expansion is that there are all these journeys that we take. And this one's a hard one. You know, your creator is coming in to say, like, you know, of all of the refining that we do as beings, like, this is some of the grittiest that you're going to encounter. And so with the Three of Pentacles here and the Page of Swords, let me just look at this, because this is kind of an amazing amount of information trying to come through at once. I take on these like lofty topics and wonder why it's hard to translate some of these messages as they come through. But this is three. When I started talking about like this fusion of you were wanted and you were conceived in such a way as to create of you a galaxy, a universe of your own. And your creator saying, like, what do you think your body is? What do you think you host? You know, in the way of a universe of your own. And so to begin to look at your life as an experience that to use this journey wisely, because what you're giving to yourself is, I'm being told, the consciousness that you, like, this is a consciousness experience, that this planet creates consciousness that creates a level of order. It's almost like we duke it out on Planet Gladiator between all of the different, so it's like, this is actually an interesting planet. People say it's a prison planet, and the creator that's coming through would say, I don't think it's a prison planet. I think it's the planet where the consciousness that you co-create together in the way of like consensus consciousness informs the way matter is organized and how things play out in matter. A lot of what the universe does is they they take this reflection, you know, they take this information in the way of consciousness, and then it helps order the greater universe. And so in co-creation with your creator, you know, is basically like you're a component of what makes the whole thing work. I'm being shown your heart, your beating heart. Your beating heart is a component of how your body works. And so when your creator says you are a component of how I work, you're not expendable. You're like the heart. And it's less in the way of parent to child. It's like a necessity. Like you are a part of me that does something that's crucial to my operation as a creator, as a universe of my own. And so, you know, so it's like, it's much more than just parent to child. It's like, you know, it's person to organ. And so your creator's coming through to say, you know, to understand that you're an infinite being is difficult. To understand that your purpose on earth has a lot to do with creating coherence. And it's basically, you know, consciousness coherence, story makers, and the stories that we live are perceived by other beings and other universes, and a lot is done in the way of debate and coming to consensus. It's almost like wars were abolished by way of letting us work things out through a kind of game theory. And so to understand that we are chapped. Is that even a word? Well, if it is, it's probably worth a Google search. I mean, not like a chapped lips, but it's like something else. But to understand that we are trapped in a kind of game theory, but what your creator is saying is like, you can win it. You can win this. It is that flimsy. And so it's almost, the point almost is to sort of like discover your magical powers and your giftedness and a sense of yourself within story. As part of, you know, and so it's like, yeah, you're trapped in a game, but you can win the game, and you can kind of figure out what the rules of the game are and aren't, and you can game the game. And so therein lies like the power of the being that you're created of and from. So how do we do that? We're going to ask, because this is, you know, what's the point of knowing such a thing if we can't figure, you know, we want the instruction manual, definitely. And I think that that's what this divination and this spirituality card is over here. With the 11, the Page of Wands, and the 9 of Wands. Look at this card. I hope that the lighting doesn't suck. I mean, I'll find out later when I go to load this up, because I can't really see from here. But I would love for you to be able to see that. I don't know. She's holding this... It's like a mirror. She's holding like a mirror with all of the planets within it, with the universe within the mirror. And that's some of what we are speaking about in terms of your experience within a story structure, within a game that refines your there's just like so much there. Like, what doesn't the life experience refine? What about the life experience doesn't teach and create, you know, through the stories that we live through based on our decisions? I mean, there's a lot that doesn't need to be explained. But what we are being told about this 9 of Wands is that there's a lot in opposition to our self-knowledge, our self-expansion, and our connection to that creator. And my stomach is going crazy, and whenever I'm channeling something very, you know, resonant, like my whole body starts to freak out. So if I'm like burping, like this is just God, not like, you know, I don't know if that felt funny to me for a second. So anyway, the Page of Wands is like child of, really. So like, you know, child, like, so there's this tension between, and when we talk about the tension between the soul and the body, and there is one, it really is this tension of being forced into this position of child, but also simultaneously being a God. And if you've ever met a toddler, you know, like there is a struggle there. You know, this moment of like, you know, like that innate knowledge of that, of like what you're created of, and then like the limitations of what it means to influence matter, basically. And so like, as you sort of refine your consciousness and learn how to influence matter, this is part of your, you know, coming into your godness. And so you are sort of like born onto the earth in this like form of child, little one, you know, in order to sort of like attain your self-actualization as, it's interesting the way that this is all put together. because, you know, I don't even know, I have to look up game theory because, again, I have a lot of special interests, and that should be one of them. And I want a better sense of what that means. But you're not being like mercilessly tortured. Like, your decisions are such a big part of this. You inform the whole to such a degree. You have so much power. And actually, you know, your creator would say it almost, you know, to a certain extent, like the creators kind of sit back sometimes and they're like, they have too much power. And like no infrastructure for really using it. And that wasn't the way that it began. It's almost like the story of creation to where we are now. It's an ongoing story of consciousness evolution, you know, through this merging. And so, yeah, it's almost too much to grab. I'm going to get instructions on how the heck we game the game. And that's where all of this like big picture is sort of leading us. And so when we look at, the Queen of Pentacles, let's take a look at this. The Eight of Swords and the Queen of Pentacles, you know, this is being trapped here. This is the labyrinth, you know, this is sort of the labyrinth that we find ourselves. Like, who are we created by? Like, what is creation? What is consciousness? Like, how do we connect? Is this all meaningless? Like, is there a way out? Like, you know, dialing up the star family, like, I don't like camp, come pick me up, you know. This is sort of what we all struggle to, and what we all seek when we turn our attention towards, and I'm seeing like pivot towards, or it's more than that, spirituality. We are connecting with the part of us that knows that the swords aren't a completed circle, and that there is a way to just walk right out. And so when we think about this game that we're in, like, there is a way to walk right out, and it comes from connecting with that part of ourselves. That the heart connects to the mind, you know, the organ connects to the whole. And your creator is saying, you know, that the position that you're put in is almost forcing you to have a level of need to make this connection in the first place. Because again, with this Queen of Pentacles, it's what establishes your kingdom of heaven on earth. and that's the health of the body as a whole. And so big and little is something we have to kind of grasp, and we do. You know, when we think about physics, you know, the difference between quantum physics and physics, like physics at the level of matter and physics at the level of what creates matter, like right there is that, basically. And the only thing that we're really trying to sort of wrap our heads around that is bigger is this notion that for every person, there's like a number of galaxies, not just a star, that we represent. Your creator keeps on saying, like I just explained it to you, heart in the body, organ in the body, like that's the connection. And so with the Lovers card and the Ten of Wands card here, you know, what we're speaking of now in the way of how difficult it is to actually to be able to come into union with the greater whole of who we are. And this is really interesting. Look at this card. Looks like the sun, but it's the Lovers, and it's represented by Metatron, who's like, it's almost like a program. You know, angels are really interesting. They're created for one purpose, and unless they sort of go askew, like they just do the one thing very automatically, like a program that runs in a computer to do one thing. And my experience of Metatron is that it has a Christ consciousness, which is good, because it creates through love, but that it's an ordering, it's a program. And so when we think about what it is to sort of like, the idea of connecting with programming it doesn't have that resonance of soul. And so, you know, this is very difficult to sort of get through, you know, what we deal with in the way of like the car doesn't work right, and like I have to pay that stupid bill, and you know, why does like the lower back hurt, you know, whatever the daily grievances end up being, and like being confronted with our smallness happens constantly, you know, sort of being able to sit, and that's these structures that kind of like hold us in. The structures that are built around us in order to keep us from the self-actualization and from this knowledge of self. And so, you know, let's get past all of this, because we've got the Wheel of Fortune here, which is where we're seeing this change in what we're capable of understanding about ourselves and our evolution, like happening right now. We are moving from one era to another, and I already see that there's a huge crack in the void, which is wonderful. Let's like, how do we game this theory? You know, how do we game this theory? How do we work this game so that we can self-actualized, you know, in the fastest, most coherent way, and get out of a situation feeling like camp sucks, right? So, Wheel of Fortune. This is the turn of the wheel. This Queen of Wands, you know, it's like we're giving birth to a new version of ourselves in a way. And ourselves is all connected. That's what this kind of Three of Cups tells me. This is a group consciousness kind of a move. And that has a lot to do with the harmony of the universes, I'm told. So that makes some sense. Like the liver has to cooperate with the skin, you know, the kidney has to cooperate with the eyeball. You know, we all kind of have to make this decision to move together forward. That's part of what the creation is, and that's sort of, for me, it feels like that's the disappointing part somehow. You know, and that's kind of a lot to say, but it sort of is. So let's get some instructions, because this is all well and good, but I would like for the creator to tell you very particularly what you need to hear today. And that's, I guess some of you, or maybe many of you, have been really trying to get closer to the knowledge of the, like, I'm hearing like the validity of what you already know to be true, but have to constantly like reestablish within yourself, because everything seems in opposition to this. So maybe you have been asking about like source, or, you know, what it means to truly connect and plug in. I'm seeing a plug in electrical current, like an electrical current, yeah. Yeah, the idealization of your faith. And this is great. Making some sense. So bottom of the deck, we have this relationships. And so this is where, you know, the big picture, you're a galaxy, doesn't help. You know what I mean? Like, you know, you're the heart of creation. Like, it's all nice. It is. But like, how is that different than any other doctrine if you can't, you know, have a personal relationship with your creator? And so one of the first things that we're being assured is like, hell yes, you can. Your creator created you with the sole purpose of having a relationship with you forever, having you as being a critical part of the body of what makes it forever. Your evolution is crucial and loved at a level that is like self, you know? And so, you know, you are meant to have this relationship with the divine, and there's a lot of components that go into why we are so disconnected. Yeah, your creator's saying the game wasn't created to put you in this position. This position was created of you, and now getting out of that position is part of the evolution of your consciousness as directed by you. But, you know, that the story, you know, is a very big, very long story, and that we find our way back towards the origin of what it is to be the beings that we are, and how we interrelate, and what it means to create a consensus consciousness that moves the whole species forward. Like, it's a kind of a big deal. And we're, you know, puttering, and it feels for us like the ants in the ant colony. Like, it just, you know, get that piece of bread back to the queen. You know, it doesn't translate well. And your creator is showing me, well, you know, neither does, you know, quantum physics to the physics of matter. Like, of course, it doesn't translate right for a reason. You'll like, your creator's like, you'll understand when you graduate kindergarten, you know, then you can start cooking at the stove. Like, it's a very interesting thing. There's a parent kind of quality. But in terms of the idealization of your faith and how this impacts your physical resources, and what the long range effects of establishing some, like, you know, your connection to spirit really are. Like, we're gonna pull some cards on this, because this is part of what it means to get some instructions. Spirit is showing me somebody like plunging for information, like sort of in an admirable way, and also in a way where they're like, look at you with your little plunger, trying so hard to get at the truth of all things. Because I am. I really want to understand. Eternal, the ancient wanderer, hope, incompleteness, yearning. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. You know, the void. The void wasn't built in. The void was a reaction formation, is what I'm just hearing right now. The void is a reaction formation. What the heck does that mean? Someone Google that at some point. Reaction formation. I think it's a psychology term. I know that it is. I just can't place it like very particularly. Anyway, point being, you know, the incompleteness is almost built in as the question that we're yearning. The yearning is, I'm seeing a math problem. How do I put this? The incompleteness, or that feeling of like, what's more? How do I connect to, like, where's mom? That question is built into the very core of your being, you know, as almost like a homing device. And I'm being shown that, like, butterflies, when they're born, know where they're getting. This thing that is in you, that questions, that yearns for, that like reaches for that connection. The very reaching for the existence of God is its proof in a weird kind of a way. And so, like, this is built in, you know, and so your creator is first saying, like, I'm going to answer you. We're answering, and it's not 17 lifetimes and, like, you know, the bright light that falls out of the sky when, you know, when you cross to the other way. This is you're meant to have this, like, tangible relationship between matter and antimatter, so that it's the experience of, like, really beautiful abundance. But first we have to stop kind of fighting with our surroundings. You know, I'm being shown, you know, that the ecosystem of everything that we know in the way of matter, you know, every animal that's ever existed, there's an equal opposite, you know, eyes above, so below, like the ecosystem of the unseen, and they both kind of support each other. Holy crap. You know, I really do bite off more than I can chew most of the time, because, like, I'm seeing something right now that I'm like, no, no way I can describe that. I will try. With the arbiter of truth, preservation, neutrality, obligation, and Neptune, you know, part of this refining process it entails with it, you know, experiences of joy and experiences of grief, experiences of like, you know, fundamental, infinite, you know, self, and experiences of, like, limitation. We are meant to, like, yeah, so, like, what does it mean to sort of win the game? Is to first understand that there's work in it, that there's work in forging ahead, that there's work in realigning, that there's work in bridging this gap between the seen and the unseen. There's just work in it. It's not supposed to be the way that it is. That's something about this necessity to survive, where we have obligation and preservation. Neutrality is sort of I'm hearing it's the path not taken. And I think that this is where the turn of the wheel is. That we've done preservation. You know, we fall into obligation. And somehow neutrality is the path not taken. And so, you know, there's this part of us that, you know, we refined and we expand and we evolved because survival of the fittest. We endure because, you know, we continue to feel an obligation to each other in term, and, like, you know, what do we do with we survived? How do we thrive? You know, like, that's kind of, but what neutrality really speaks to is stepping out of this idea of sacrifice and striving and into a kind of, like, I'm seeing like a bowl or like a womb, like a carrier, like, let's see if I can get the right word on this one. It's like an allowing. Let's just call it like an allowing. Step into a place of an allowing instead of searching. You know, the seeker in you is in response to, like, the math problem to sort of initiate contact. But the part of you that receives is the part of you that enters into relationship. And so that this next part, your faith and the storyteller, every world religion is in some way or another, you know, ritual is the container for belief. And, you know, what is dogma if not ritual at a really grand scale? And so when you understand that we need story structure and we need something to contain, you know, what we form beliefs around, that's sort of like this notion of, like, when Jesus was like, I am the way and the light. That was because the vastness, and because I always mess up this word, anthropomorphosis, I don't know, when we look at animals and we think of them as being human, we have like this thing with God where it has to kind of be having a human form for us to actually think of like ourselves as being in true relationship. Like when we think of it as being like a field of flowers, like what's that going to do? You know, so we do sort of need that story to contain our divinity. But where we're in co-creation with the divine is the divine gives us free reign on what the story is that we're going to use to contain and convey our, it's both contain and convey our divinity. It contains our divinity, you know, in the way that we construct our belief for ourselves. And then the way that we communicate that belief is the way that we bring that divinity into the world. And so, you know, your creator's saying, you're always trying to tell me to take the wheel. You're always trying to tell me to take control. Like, but the power, but the goal is for you to realize your own power. And to understand how to work with your own power. And as you learn to understand how to work with your own power, it's like you come into this being, you know, you're in a process of evolving. You're not at the end. You have an infinite time span to become. And with this next card here, in term, like, this is a little bit intimidating, but your whole point is to create a story that contains your faith, and then to use it to create a way in which other people can access this process within themselves. Like, that self-actualization isn't about homogeneity. You know, it's about that individual relationship informing the whole. Quantum physics informing matter physics. You know, so your creator is basically saying, like, I know that you feel this insufficiency around the answer of you create your way towards me. You create your way through that void into a knowledge of me. This is how, you know, this works. And that inspiration that I give you is what leads you. That inspiration that I give you is what comes from elsewhere. That is the influence of your creator elsewhere, you know, bringing that inspiration in. And so, you know, as you follow that curiosity, you know, as you create of that inspiration, you create that path through the void into connection with your creator and that knowledge of self. And so when we talk about, like, you know, bringing this down to the level of, like, well, how does this practically serve me? You're not connecting with a field of flowers. You're connecting with your greater whole. The heart is a necessity for the Bible. Well, that makes sense, because I'm talking about stories, and I'm talking about, we have the angel of divination, and, you know, I'm creating this course. I absolutely have no idea how long it's going to take me, so I'll tell you guys when I get there, that speaks about divination and basically the history, and then, like, where can it go, and, like, what does it do. And one of the things that I'm looking at is divination through the art of the sermon. Is very much like the structure of the book itself provides the archetypes so, like, the preacher reads the book, and the preacher decides what verses, what cards to put in the sermon. But, you know, and it's all these different archetypes, and so it's basically like reading a deck of cards. It's just like a different process. So, you know, when we think about, like, the infrastructure of what contains our faith, it needs a heart, you know? And so, like, when we think about, you know, our creator, it's whatever structure and whatever story that we create to contain our faith and to contain our belief systems. Those belief systems are real and true because they are inspired by what created you. But if you don't have a heart in what your belief systems are, your creator isn't a part of that. And so that's like, you know, so that's where that just came through. Maybe that's for somebody very particular. But when we think about this secrets, vigilance, and subterfuge, I don't think I said that right. We have, this is speaking of well, this is Nyx, but this is, like, very much this energy of the night. Very much this energy of finding the path, not by looking in front of you, but looking at the parting in the trees when you look up in the, you know, pitch dark. You know, it's the different kind of way of orienting. What we have in the way of opposition and structure that is in opposition to our self-actualization. It's a pull. It's like something that would like to contain what it is that we're made of, and keep it, like, you know, in a state of confusion. Like that there is this aspect of something farming what it is that we're meant to create for ourselves. And again, I see the snake that eats its tail. And so through this confusion, like finding this path, it's permitted for the purpose of the growth that the friction sort of creates, but it's designed for you to break it. And so when we ask about, like, how do we break through the game theory or whatever, how do we map the game, how do we do the game, it's because this is designed to be broken. It's designed to be overcome. You know, I'm being shown the oh, I love this. This is so cool. So I'm actually seeing like combat, like a wrestling match, like fighting, you know, in order for us to like, oh yeah, training. So I'm being shown like Rocky, the movie, you know, the training to overcome the opposition is the gaining the strength, the learning the technique of strength, and learning what your power really is. And so your creator is almost saying, like, yeah, there's this interloper who came in to, you know, mess with the idea of the Garden of Eden. And this, it's much bigger than that story, but we're just going to use it because it's like a card that we're pulling to bring the divinity through. That's, you know, storyteller. That's like a really important point. But, you know, the creator is basically saying, I laugh at this toothless dog. I laugh at this this God that would assert itself over creation's growth process and take from it. Little does it know that, you know, it's training my children, you know, to know their own strength and to be able to possess their own power and wield it. It's an allowance. And, you know, when we contend with our pain and we contend with our suffering, it can be really like, it can be one of these experiences where you know, you turn to your creator and say, you know, I don't appreciate this. I like gentle parenting. This is how I would do it, and this is how I kind of want you to do it. But then your creator says, I am the body and you are the heart. I want you to be strong and you want to be strong, and you want to be what you are, not talked into yeah. Then I'm being shown like what cancer is when the cell decides for itself what it's going to do and starts acting in opposition to the body, and eventually everything gets sick and begins to die. And so there's this, like, you know, bringing yourself into the harmony of your infinite strength is a big part of the whole body working to be what it is, and, you know, to sort of operate in the way that it does. You are a part of the body of what it is to, this is just, a lot of this really like this shows up. I'm being told that this shows up in all, you know, this energy keeps on bringing me back to divination through, like, I'm just going to tell you what I'm kind of working on with the beginning of the course is looking at the ways that divination has always been meaning brought through story, you know, that is inspired by the God, you know, whatever the gods were, you know, the stories you brought that meaning through their story, and you took it apart, and you know, took different pieces of it, and it informed who you wanted to become and the way that you wanted to grow. And archetypes, you know, provide the structure for every single one of these stories in one way or another. And so that story making and meaning making, you know, and the evolution of our own consciousness as broadening. That's the whole point. And so the point isn't to win the game. The point is to extract as much meaning from it as possible, in order to broaden that consciousness that orders the. I see like the Milky Way. It orders the galaxy that ends up being you. You know, and again, I'm being shown, like, what do you think your mitochondria think of you? You know, like that you are its galaxy. And so just, it's not that far-fetched to sort of bring some of this in and understand what it is. The hard part, and your creator saying the heartbreaking part, is that you don't, the pushback on, no, I'm not a universe, I'm just like, I hate going to work every day, that's what I am, that's like the heartbreaking, that is where we have defeat. And that defeat won't last forever. But when you lay down in the fight because you perceive your opposition as being more powerful than you. Not only is it not true, and it causes a whole lot of pain, but the heartbreaking part is everything about the structure around you is designed to sort of take your power in that way. And so when we look at this, the Witch of the Ages, Morian, love this, atonement, growth, deceit. You know, the deceit is created to subjugate your power to that which is claiming possession over it. But atonement is coming back into alignment with who you are, what you are, and what you're created of and through. And basically, here's what it ends up being. Spirit is showing me it's Hogwarts. It's like Alakazam, zippity-doo, and then like here's like, you know, a bowl of sustenance. It's not killing an animal to eat. We don't have to be at war with the way that the matter through which we're created, because we have all the power in the world to create as our creator created. This path, this journey to that self-actualization and that being able to use our power, not only does it make us fit to use our power so that we don't make a mess of it, which is when it kind of like pre-deluge. Deluge is one of the things that's like common throughout all magic belief systems. And, you know, when the creator says, you know, there was a time when the gods walked among the earth with their creations to inform them, but the balance of power was so off that it required a reset, and the reset was in the form of the story that we now stepped into. And getting us to this point where, you know, the depletion of all of the source of our magic and how we use it, to like learning how to use it from scratch is almost like learning how to wield it. And so, you know, we're not like blaming the victim so much here as we are just looking at this as like, you know, if we want to take a God's eye view, which is what we're doing with the reading, then it's going to be this far away to a certain extent. But the nice nugget of like amazing truth is that endowed with you as I hate to even say offspring of your creator, extension of your creator, because I really am seeing the body, you know, and then the heart in the body, is the ability to affect matter, to create matter, is the ability to create matter. That's what I'm hearing. So to that I say, more instructions, please. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at. And this is really, yeah, the Mad Prophet. Oh, I like this. Okay, so let's go. We're going to go to this, and I'm going to let us all, I'm going to let us, because it takes so long to like load up a YouTube video. Like, I'm going to let us take this moment as a break, so that I'm going to just cut off this video here and just kind of say like, whoever's taking notes, let's like leave it at, let's think about what we're leaving it at. We are leaving this at the Mad Prophet and what it means to rediscover our magic and to step into what it means to actually wield some of our power and start to play with it in a way that we can use it. So this was like backdrop, like who are we, what are we, like how are we connected? The creator that we're connecting with is kind of giving us this story to hold our belief in. Let's come back to magic in the next episode. So everybody take a break. We'll be back in a minute.